Marlene Major disappeared in 1980. 1 year later, a jawless, toothless skull fragment was found in the woods not far from her home. Local police have always suspected Marlene's husband, Bill Major, of doing away with his wife. But in the days before DNA, the toothless skull could not be positively identified. Without Marlene's body or any other proof of foul play, the case has languished for the better part of 2 decades.
It's a cold case. It's as cold as it gets.
LaLana Bramble was 4 years old when her mother Marlene disappeared.
My dad had basically told us that she was a drug addict, alcoholic prostitute, who just really didn't care about us, and that she had run off with another man.
After a childhood of sexual abuse at the hands of her father, Bill Major, LaLana grew to distrust his tales about Marlene and eventually began to suspect him of murder. As an adult, she confronted him.
Just tell me what you did with her body so we can bury her, and I'll leave you alone. I said, I won't force the issue, won't try to get you prosecuted. You can just live your merry little life. And he laughed at me. And his specific words to me were, if you think I'm going to tell you where your mother's body is, you're crazy. So at that point I told him, I said, okay, fine, it's on.
In the winter of 2000, LaLana begins sowing the seeds of her discontent in the Boone County Courthouse. Her pleas take root in the office of the newly elected prosecutor, Linda Talley Smith.
I have a passion for trying to close cases, and this is one of those perfect cases where you feel like you have to commit everything that you possibly can, every resource available to you, so that you can tell this family, we have done everything that we could possibly do.
Smith calls upon Special Investigator Todd Kenner. His first task, transform Marlene Major from missing to dead.
Of course, the first thing, one of the most important things, was doing the DNA identification of the skull. So we contacted the daughter so she could do a swab.
Using the process of mitochondrial DNA, samples from the skull fragment are compared to those from LaLana Bramble. The results indicate that the 2 samples are maternally linked. In other words, the skull must belong to Marlene Major.
And that's the information we needed. And of course, my next step was I contacted the family and said, it is Marlene, positively.
After 20 years, the whereabouts of Marlene Major is no longer a mystery. The case is then handed to forensic anthropologist Emily Craig, who examines the skull and transforms Marlene Major from dead to murdered.
There was a gunshot wound to the head. The exit wound was right here in the top of the skull.
In addition to the gunshot wound, Dr. Craig finds evidence of attempted decapitation.
There were cuts here, 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 straight across in a line.
Using a thick-bladed cutting instrument such as an axe, the killer attempted and probably succeeded in decapitating Marlene Major. Then he turned his blade to her jaw.
There were striations right through here that indicated to me that there was a deliberate attempt to remove those ligaments or sever those ligaments with a knife. Because as soon as you get through those ligaments all the way around the joint, then the jaw will come off.
A killer who shot Marlene Major then decapitated her and removed her jaw to obscure her identity. One by one, the pieces of the puzzle are falling into place, forming as they do an image of Bill Major. Now the state looks to Major's own words to make the picture complete.
One philosophy that I've always had is that you need a statement from a defendant. I don't care if it's a denial, if it's a go to hell, or if it's a complete confession, just anything that nails them into their version of what took place.
In 1996, Major allegedly confessed to the crime during a phone conversation with his father.
He says, I killed Marlene. I said, you little bastard.
Obviously, that statement is a great statement, but there was a lot of animosity between Jim Major and Bill Major. And so, the credibility of that type of witness is automatically suspect.
The alleged confession was never recorded. Now cold case detectives hope to get a second admission on tape. Investigators Todd Kenner and Tim Carnahan travel to the home of Jim Major in the spring of 2000. Major agrees to a wiretap on his phone as he calls his son Bill and discusses the details of an alleged murder confession made 4 years earlier.
Hello?
Hello. What are you up to?
I just finished breakfast.
Just finished breakfast. For Christ's sakes, it's lunchtime.
Basically asked him what we were after was, one, to confirm that the conversation did take place in '96, and to get what details he could out of him.
Bill, I said, I'm calling you up. I want to know something. He said, what's that? I said, why won't you tell me where you buried Marlene?
Immediately, there was, what I recall, pause on the phone.
I keep getting calls from Lalana, and she wants to know where her mother is so that she can get the bones and put them in a casket and have closure.
Yeah, and put me in jail for life.
There was no denial there. He's basically saying, if I tell the truth, I'm going to jail.
Christ, at least you could be decent enough to say where you dumped her. I'll tip her where the body is if you let me know.
And then she's going to bounce it right back on me again. Then I'll have them Kentucky cops coming up here to arrest me and take me back down there again.
They didn't get you yet. It's been too long.
There's no such thing as too long.
He's confirming the conversation took place. He's confirming that he did this horrible thing.
She pulled a gun on you. You took it off her and shot her, right?
Yeah, that's one story.
That was your story. That's what you told me. But you told me you killed her.
Well, at the time I was in jail and I was pretty well upset.
That's when the cop says, we got him. We got him.
The conversation between father and son provides cold case detectives with the one element they have been missing.
If it's recorded, it's evidence.
The suspect's own voice confirming what they have long suspected. Bill Major killed his wife Marlene almost 20 years ago.
You have pulled off the perfect crime, haven't you?
No, I wouldn't call it perfect.
Don't you even feel bad for killing her?
I don't have any kind of conscience about anything.
Well, you are one tough bastard. To think that the son I raised could do such a thing.
Not long after Bill Major hangs up the phone with his dad, he is arrested and charged with murder in the first degree. At trial, a mountain of physical and circumstantial evidence, together with the defendant's own voice, cast a long shadow over Bill Major. It takes the jury less than 1 hour to find him guilty of murdering his wife and then dismembering her body to obscure her identity.
To sit down and think about how he would have manipulated her head to pull her teeth out and to remove her lower jaw reminds you of horror movies that you watch on TV. And thinking of her eyes looking up at him as he's pulling her teeth out. That's a person without any feelings.
Bill Major is sentenced to life in a Kentucky prison. For some, the sentence is too light.
The no good son of a bitch I'd hang him myself if I could get my hands on him.
For Bill and Marlene's daughter, Lalana, the verdict brings some relief, some comfort to soothe the painful memories of a family torn apart by the sins of a father.
I've always felt a certain amount of guilt over her death because in my mind, and I know my brother feels the same way, she died to protect us, trying to protect us from him. And I sat there and I thought, she's finally going to be at peace.